Mike Johnson's obscurity may well have been the thing that helped him win, but now that he's been elected Speaker, who's second in line to the presidency after the vice president, by the way, folks are taking a hard look at his record. Johnson was key to Trump's attempts to overturn the 2020 election. The New York Times last year called Johnson, quote, the most important architect of the Electoral College objections on January 6, 2021. It was Johnson who was the vice chair of the GOP caucus and a Trump ally who led the amicus brief signed by more than 100 Republicans in the House that supported a Texas lawsuit seeking to invalidate the 2020 election results in 4 swing states. Now, if being an election denier wasn't enough to excite you about the new speaker, just wait, there's more. Let me tell you a little bit about his voting record. Johnson voted against certifying the 2020 election. He voted against codifying same-sex marriage. He voted against reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act. He voted against aid for Ukraine and voted against the PACT Act. And now that PACT Act provides care for veterans. He also has a history of voting against legal abortion. And now, this is the guy who just in over 2 weeks is going to be responsible for helping the country avoid a government shutdown. Now, my next guest is raising red flags all over the place regarding Johnson's lack of leadership experience and long record of extremism. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Madeleine Dean from Pennsylvania. She was an independent manager for the second impeachment of Donald Trump. Thank you so much for being here, Congresswoman. Good morning to you. Now, you have been so vocal about your lack of trust in Speaker Johnson, but if you can, please tell us what is it that concerns you the most about him and his record?
Good morning, Charles. Thank you for having me on. And in your lead up, you discussed something that I thought about as I sat on the floor of the House. The secret to the success of Mike Johnson ascending to the speakership after about a 24-hour run is that very few people knew him or knew what he stands for. I literally was on the floor during the vote, and a Democratic colleague of mine said, "Do you know anything about this guy? Have you had any interaction with him?" I said, "I've had plenty of interaction with him because I serve on the Judiciary Committee where he serves." He is an extremist MAGA Republican. And I have to tell you, Charles, I don't know that I've ever used the word MAGA. I don't really care for it. But in this case, he slipped in. Mike Johnson slipped in. He is an extremist. He is a Trump ally. He and I literally had a conversation shortly after the certification of our President Biden. And he tried to defend to me and to others on my side of the aisle why he was such an architect of the election denying scheme, tried to argue his legal case about it. And when I said to him, but after all, there was an attempted insurrection, you were here for it. That didn't change your sights at all? No, it did not. And you saw as he ran for speaker, he couldn't answer the question as to who is the rightful president of the United States. It's chilling to me that he is now third in line to the presidency.
So, Congresswoman, we're talking about a deadline regarding the CR that was put into effect just a little while ago, where we're facing a government shutdown in just a few weeks. How confident are you in the new speaker's ability to get us to a point that we are able to keep the government open past November 17th?
I don't know that any of us knows what confidence level we can have. After all, Mike Johnson voted against the continuing resolution that a vast majority of Democrats voted for in order to keep the government open. You know, in his opening speech as Speaker, just prior to his being sworn in, he talked about a limited role of government. Well, I guess he really wants it limited because he was willing to vote to shut it down. He talked about a limited role of government, and yet he would like a nationwide abortion ban. The limited role of government. He voted against aid to Ukraine, protection of that democracy, even as we protect our own. So we don't have any idea of his level of capacity in terms of making sure we don't shut our government down. I hope he surrounds himself with some talented people.
Congresswoman, I want to pivot just a bit to a subject that you're very familiar with, and that is Donald Trump and legality. You were a House manager for the second impeachment trial for Donald Trump. And in recent weeks, we have seen his rhetoric around his political and his legal enemies become increasingly more and more violent. As someone who has a strong background dealing with Donald Trump in this way, is this something that voters should be more and more concerned about? Or is it just enough at this point to talk it up or chalk it up to Trump just being Trump?
I am very concerned about that. And it is not disconnected from what we just talked about. And Mr. Johnson as Speaker, leaders would stand up and speak out and say, we must work together to stamp out any kind of talk of violence. We must stand against the former president in the things that he is doing to try to upend the rule of law, try to undermine our faith in our institutions. But I hope people go back and take a look at Mr. Johnson. He's really a surrogate for Trump in our hearings in judiciary. You should see what he does, just like Mr. Jordan, but a little smoother and with a smile. He tries to undermine our faith in our institutions in order to make Trump successful in his run for president. It is mighty scary, and I just hope and pray that the Republican caucus sees this for what it is and saves us from going to the brink of destroying our democracy.
So much more we could talk about on this, but running out of time. Got to thank you, Pennsylvania Congresswoman Madeleine Dean. Appreciate you being here.